New Year's Eve 2025. We are headed to the shop. Step one today is we gotta do some cleaning. We've got bolts everywhere, tools everywhere. So we're gonna get some cleanup done and then we're gonna get to work. We've got a lot to do over the next several days to feel good about the last couple weeks. The main focus was supposed to be the 66 and it just plain old hasn't been. We've had tons going on, so let's see if we can't focus today. Jerk. All right. So, we have got to clean up that nightmare. And then I've got all my hardware from taking the motor out and sticking stuff off the motor that I need to bag and tag, because the first thing we're going to do when we get back after it is get these inner fenders pulled so we can get access to those cab mounts. So I'm gonna get changed, because even in my own shop I change so I don't tear up the interior of my cars. And we'll get after it. So we're going to clean up a little bit, obvious reasons. We've been just kind of flying through sheet metal work and we've just made a mess of the place. I'm gonna pull back some of this wiring. So I've got all this new wiring that I've done that I'm going to undo now. I'm just going to get it basically laid down in here so it's out of the way for now. And I think with the inners off, I might have to take the wheels off to get a nice bit of access, but I think with the inner fenders off and the wheels off, I should be able to get there without pulling the cab. Again, it's just me in here, so pulling the cab would kind of suck. So let me change, we'll get after it. All right, to do this we need two things. Well, three technically. A surplus of loose bolts. Good there. Baggies, Sharpie. I keep tons of both around. So normally when I take stuff apart, I organize it in a way that I know where everything is so it goes back together. This particular project, originally I was just going to throw that engine together and just toss it back in and get back to cruising. But when I pulled the motor out, we got a real good look at some of the stuff that was going on under the truck. And I just couldn't in good conscience throw it all back together. So here we are. It's been a long time coming, but we're sort of getting on the home stretch as far as heavy fab work. And then it's going to be kind of like building just a normal car that most people might get. Doesn't have a lot of rust and stuff anymore. So I've got a ton to get organized. I've got parts in the bed. I got parts on the hood. I got two sets of wheels besides the one that's on it underneath the truck because I'm indecisive. So I'm gonna start bagging and tagging and get some things laid out. And then we'll get back to it when there's something more interesting. Oh, here's. So it looks like when I go to take this inner fender off, there's bolts that come through from this way. Well, I've still got the factory heater box in there. I'm deleting it anyway, and we're gonna plug those holes. So once I get everything cleaned up and ready to go, the first thing we're probably gonna do is pull these three nuts and see what else is back there and try to get that heater box out from inside. We don't use it anyway. We're going to bypass it on the motor. So we'll probably do that first and then go after all this wiring. So here we go. All right, all labeled up. Whenever possible, if you've got like loose brackets, zip tie the bolts to it or attach the bolts to go to it together. So we've got most of them bagged. For now, these are just gonna go in the bed of the truck and we'll carry on cleaning. All right, we're cleaned up, so now we can lay in it. This stuff is like the insulation put here in 1966, and I've caught it on fire like several times during the process of fixing the truck. But we're gonna go after getting this box out of here. We'll be able to clean up some of this wiring that had to go around it and get rid of some of this stuff that really didn't have a whole lot of use right now, and maybe see if we can get this working before we put it back in. It will also give us a chance to inspect the heater core in there, because if I'm honest, I have no idea if it's any good. If the heater core is good, I might put that back in. Might try to get that whole setup working, because a defroster might be kind of nice. Not necessarily looking for heat, but a defroster would be nice in those odd months, excuse me, of the year where we do get foggy windshields and stuff. It'd be nice to get rid of my windshield towel and just have a defroster. And if I have a defroster, that means I do have heat, which means on days like today, I could still drive it and not hate life. Yeah, we might go that route. Well, we're gonna learn something together today. So there's a bunch of seam sealer right there between this panel and the firewall. So I don't know if this is gonna work or not. But I'm gonna actually switch gears from the heater box, and I'm gonna remove this stuff, pull out the battery box. I'm gonna work the passenger side first because it doesn't have this stuff in the way, just to see if it's even possible. So these American Auto wire kits, pretty sweet, man. They come with these big old bus bars with these giant 175 amp fuses for your charging system, if you opt for it anyway. I had to request that because I converted to a single wire alternator. But if you tell them that when you buy your kit, it comes with all that stuff, which is pretty sweet. Remember, kids, put the bolts back when you can, and you'll never lose them. Should be out of our way enough to do something. Yeehaw, yeah. Okay, we've got our battery box removed. Now we can start pulling these. We've got bolts here along the fender, bolts down in here along the core support, and then we've got at least 2 studs, 3 studs it looks like, back here on the firewall, holding this thing in. Now we're gonna do one side at a time for a couple reasons. One, we can stay focused on this side. Each side has its own challenges, but this side being torn apart leaves us this side for any kind of measurements we may need to get this one correct. And when we put this fender back on, we have an example of how Ford did it. So we can't mess it up. So I'm gonna start pulling bolts. Here's the thing I just learned. Ford used a bolt with a nut on the bottom. So it's just spinning. This is just spinning. So now we're gonna see if they're all gonna do that. Looks like a super solid possibility. These are all just gonna spin. Cool. All right, well, I'm gonna get started doing that. And in 4 lifetimes when I have that done, we'll look at the next step. So far, not as bad as I thought it was gonna be. However, those 2 are really hard to reach, both sides of the bolt. And that's what we're gonna try to do now. Got one. It was rusty. One more to do up front, and then it looks like I really do just have those 3, 1 here and 2 on the inside of this hump right here. Then I can start fighting it out. Well, that was pretty cool. So got to where I was pulling these, and these are studs, and they came right out. 1 more to go. So at least they did me that favor, right? Sometimes you just gotta try stuff, kids. I just wanted to see how much of a pain that would be. Ended up coming right out. Heck yeah. They snuck 2 on me. So I gotta pop that off, and then she should come out. Well, the fingers crossed and gamble. Sometimes they don't work out. Today might be one of those days. So the inner's loose. It's free. And my theory was that it would drop down far enough that I could like slide this side out, which would allow me to sneak this side past. But I'm completely stuck right there. So this curves out right here so that this part's stuck. That's in the way, so I can't sneak this past there. I tried to go down to buy me some room this way to maybe get the angle so that I could sneak it out. But that is not working out that way. I might have to pull that fender, which, if I'm honest, I was trying to avoid busting off the whole clip because I know what that's going to do. That's going to add like another month of metal work because I already know the core support's got a couple small pieces that could use some rust repair. But if I have to take the whole clip off, I'm putting the core support on a bench and fixing everything and painting it before it goes back together. So this may ruin our Valentine's Day idea. Maybe. Because after this week, I go back to having a day job. And this becomes more of a weekend thing. So fingers crossed. I'm going to sit here, him and haw about it, see if I can come up with a plan without doing that. But at the end of the day, if I have to do that and tear the whole front clip apart, I'll end up with a longer lasting repair. So that's not always a bad thing. It's just schedule wise, It's not what I wanted to do, but I guess it's time I practice what I preach. One of the things I always say to these young guys that are getting into the hot rods, they freak out about how long it takes and all that. And I tell them, your car costs nothing to sit there. Now, obviously, if you just bought a 2023 BMW, it costs you something every month. But these old cars, once you buy them, they'll sit in the corner of the shop and wait for you to have the time and the patience and the money to mess with them. So if I blow it apart and I miss a deadline that I set upon myself, then so be it. We're going to see what happens in the next hour or so. So I'll let you know in a minute what I come up with. So I am going to have to pull the entire front clip. So I've got bolts for the fender shrouded in here, bolts shrouded in the A-pillar for the back of the fender and underneath the truck. And then I've got bolts behind the headlight buckets going this way to get that fender out of the way. So it is what it is. I'll be able to fix the core support at this time, which is a positive thing. But with me going back to work in a couple days, it's just adding a ton of metalwork to the project that was not previously anticipated. So it is what it is. We want a good finished product for ourselves that will last a while. And sometimes that means doing things that you weren't totally prepared to do. That's project cars. That's how they work out. I've always said it. Take your budget financially and you double it, and take your time and triple it, and you might be close to what it's actually going to take. So we had hoped to have it done by February. Maybe spring we'll be rolling around in it. This is going to add legitimately at least a couple weeks to our timeline because of work and other things. It shouldn't add too much money, mostly just time. The little bit of money we'll have to spend will be on, little things like little patch pieces and stuff like that. So we're gonna start blowing apart the front clip, and that's what we're gonna do the rest of the day is blow the front end apart. We will see you guys tomorrow. I hope you guys have a great New Year's Eve. I hope you are safe, you enjoy yourselves. If you do drink, please don't drive. Call someone. I know no matter who you are, there's always someone that's willing to pick you up. If you're watching this and you know me and we still live within 400 miles of each other, call me. I'll come get you. I'll take you for a drunken ride in a Maserati if you want, or I'll pick you up in an old shit box. Doesn't matter. Don't drink and drive. Be safe. Enjoy yourself. Be responsible. Let's go out in 2025 like the good people we are. Let's have fun. If you're like me and you're probably not going to make it till midnight, I'll see you tomorrow bright and early. We'll be back in here. I just have a couple things to do in the morning on the property. And then we'll be back in here, back on the truck, and we'll see what we can get done. Thank y'all. Love y'all. Peace. Happy New Year's, and have a very good one.